energy. These are the first words I have spoken today, so apologies if my voice sounds annoying. Okay, so today I wanted to sit down, do my makeup, have my morning coffee, and just have a little chit chat about how I got my job and all of those details. I've been keeping this video idea in my list for a long time. Now is the time that people are like graduating and applying for jobs, but like this is not the normal scenario of people applying for jobs, but I thought this was still applicable. People are eventually gonna have to apply for jobs, whether it's like a month from now or whenever, so I thought this would just be helpful. Feel free to come back to this when the world is like back to normal, hopefully. Yeah, let's get started. I feel like everybody knows, but I work full-time as a project manager in marketing at one of the big 4 firms. That is where I currently work. So I've had 3 jobs post-grad, and I graduated in 2018 with a degree in professional writing, which I literally don't use. So in terms of finding a job, it is very stressful. Everyone's situation is so different, and I can't even imagine doing this now. I feel so much for all of the senior university students right now. Like, oh my god, some people just get really lucky and get amazing jobs with high salaries like right out of grad, and yeah, it can be a little stressful. I also want to say I have a whole video on resumes and where to look for jobs as well. I'll link it down below, and that video has a lot of good examples of how to make yourself seem more competitive even if you have no experience whatsoever, just like I did. Anyways, the first job I got found on the U of T job portal, and I did that for 4 months. The second job I found on Indeed. For me, when I was applying right out of post-grad, I honestly applied to like 10 jobs a day. Obviously for the job I'm in now, did not do that. I'm gonna get there. Every interview experience is a good experience. Some interviews I went to were so sketchy in these really interesting buildings with very interesting people, but that was all just building my experience. Getting to the part that I feel like everyone wants to know, how I got my job now. Yes. So at the time I was working at a cancer charity, and I feel like this is something a lot of people go through, is applying for a job when you already have a job is like, it is like a whole thing. Where do I even begin? So working at the cancer charity was so much fun. I worked there for 11 months, and when I quit, I cried. Probably the most embarrassing point of my whole life was talking to the VP and giving my 2 weeks and crying, because I don't even know, I just like really loved that job, and I love the charity and everybody who works there. So it was a very tough situation to leave. Nevertheless, here we are. So the company I'm at now was specifically one that I really wanted to work at. So what I would do was, you can kind of subscribe to like a newsletter, I guess, of when they post jobs. And at the time I worked in marketing, so every time there would be like a job that I'd be interested in, like a marketing job, I would just apply. I think I applied 3 times and I never heard back ever. Yeah, so I think around January I had applied to just like a general marketing associate role. Then the end of June I got an email from the company saying that they had received my application, they filled the role, but they had another role that is the role I'm in now that they think I'd be interested in. So I honestly responded to the email. So like I said, this was in June. This is like 6 months after I'd applied, and like didn't hear anything. Literally, I think 2 days later or something, I had a phone interview with the recruiter. After that, it was like 2 more interviews, and then that was the whole interview process. Very fast paced. It kind of just literally came out of the blue. Also, this was like the worst possible time I could have left the job I was at. Yeah, I don't know, I felt so guilty, and it was just like a whole emotional thing. Obviously everyone was super supportive and like excited for me. In terms of the interviews, I was so nervous. It was probably like the most nerve-wracking, one of the most nerve-wracking experiences in my life. Yeah, I just feel like walking into the building and like being in that environment and seeing all these people like working, it was so intimidating and very nerve-wracking. However, I had never prepared more for anything in my life. It was literally like studying for an exam. I had a Word document of just like pages and pages and pages of like possible questions. I had copy and pasted their job posting into a Word document, and each bullet point, I had written under each bullet point like my experience, how I can accomplish that, my ideas, like everything. So although I was like really nervous, obviously I was very prepared. So that definitely helped me a lot. Obviously the interviews went well. I feel like too, the job I'm in now is another fairly entry-level position, not as entry-level as my last two. They're not gonna ask you crazy, intense, difficult questions. It was a lot of the classics, like tell me about yourself, why should we hire you over somebody else. Yeah, a lot of scenarios of like, if you're managing a project and this happens, you know, what would you do? It was very nerve-wracking because when I would go into the interviews and sit there, I could see other people waiting to interview as well. Other people were interviewing for the same job, so it felt very competitive, but I just tried as much as possible to not pretend to be like the super serious professional person, because at the end of the day I wanted to get matched into a team where I'm like well suited, and I feel like I am. Like my team I'm on now, all their personalities are very similar to mine. I feel like that's really important, is to try to just like be as normal as possible. Obviously I was like freaking out. I feel like one thing I did, which I've actually never done before, was I practiced my answers in a mirror, which is super lame, but it really helped me because they would ask me exact questions that I had like practiced in the mirror. So even like the classic question, like why should we hire you over somebody else, I already knew exactly what to say, so I didn't have to take any pauses to like think and like panic. I was just like knew my answer. I truly think that if you're meant to be in a job, you're gonna get the job, which might sound a little bit extra, but that's truly what I think. I just thought like, if I'm supposed to get it, I'm gonna get it. I feel like it just took the pressure off being like, I have to get this job, oh my god, I have to get it, because it's out of my control. If I'm gonna get it, I'm gonna get it, and it's really not up to me. Yeah, that is how I had my job. I had 3 interviews, 1 phone interview, 2 in-person interviews. In terms of advice and tips, I think definitely apply everywhere, interview a ton, especially if you're entry level and this is one of your first jobs. Literally just apply everywhere. I think in terms of interviewing, I talked about that a lot in my other video, but just be like as prepared as possible. Have the job description like memorized. They're gonna ask you why you think you'd be good for this job, and you want to say things that are on the job description that makes you seem really like a good match. Obviously make sure it's like genuine, you actually would be a good match. Like I said, don't put too much pressure on yourself to find this like amazing perfect job right out of university. So yeah, that is my take on how I got the job I have now. I hope this was helpful. I feel like a lot of people DM me questions. Feel free to DM me or comment down below any questions, any advice I can give. I feel like I just think everything that happens is meant to be. Everything will fall into place. Don't put too much pressure on yourself, especially now when we're in a pandemic. I hope you guys enjoy watching this video. I hope it was helpful, and I'll talk to you guys on Sunday. Hope you have a good Friday, and yeah, okay, bye.